Hi, everyone. Welcome to another amazing topic of conversation. First, I want to thank my sponsors, the Health Channel. So please, everything regarding to your health, sign up for their newsletter. And if you need any working space, Alexa's Workspaces can take care of that, even if it's for 1 hour, 1 month, or a whole year. So, Paola, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Gladys, for
Dr.
inviting
Paola. Recently, well, this week actually, last week, the American Cancer Society came up with the study 6/2024 that stated that the cancer patients were younger than they realized. Can you talk about the findings? Because I
course.
thought it was like really shocking.
Of course, yeah. So every year the organization has an annual report that gives us stats and trends, I guess. So what they found this year when they just published is that we have a good news and bad news, right? We have the good news is mortality has decreased. So that is proof of all the advancement on science and all the efforts that have been made for that. But unfortunately, this was kind of the biggest good news on the report because incidence rates had increased. So we are having new cancers diagnosed than compared to 2023 and 2024 and so on. And when you look at which age group kind of increased more, you find that it's not the 65 plus age group that we usually see the biggest trend in cancer, but in percentage wise, between 50 to 65 is where we saw a bigger increase. So that is one thing that was really caught a lot of attention. And the other one I think that it's very interesting too is that the leading cause of death changed. Like it was different from previous reports. So now we have that the leading cause of death is colorectal cancer, that it wasn't like that before. Especially it was the leader, it's in men, and in women is second. So it's pretty impressive, and that changed a lot.
So isn't there like a screening for that? Like a pre-screening?
Yes. So for colorectal cancer, we have several screenings. The most common one is a colonoscopy. That depending on again what society you're following is the age recommendation, but it is recommended for sure for people over 50 years old. And the screening it's clearly making an impact because we are diagnosing those cancers. I guess the question is still to remains is why is the cancer incidence increasing in this particular cancer, and also why are more people dying from it? So that is something that science has not really responded yet, but it was one of the biggest findings.
Will it help if the cancer screening, if they lower the age, like for example, 40 or 45?
So that's a great question. There are like different trends on this particular topic about like screening before or after, right? Um, I think that for screening, you always have that small balance between you don't want to overdiagnose and expose people to more interventions that they need, but at the same time, you don't want to miss early diagnosis because of that. So that balance is constantly changing. It changed a lot for prostate cancer. It changed a lot for breast cancer. And now I think that colorectal is in that same space in a way. For now, there's a lot of controversy regarding like which people, which population should get screenings before. Of course, like if you have a family member that has had colorectal cancer, you need to have it before the 50th. And it depends on when that person was diagnosed, when you have to start their screening. So it's this whole balance act between you don't want to overexpose people and to treat to diagnoses that interventions that they don't really need, but on the other side, we don't want to catch it early. So I think that prevention scientists are really focusing on that, and the trend, depending on which cancer we're talking about, it's kind of going into that way, but there's no big advancements on the colorectal one, at least not in a nationwide approach.
But is there, based on the study that came out, was there any race or ethnic groups that were affected more?
I cannot recall for colorectal particularly, if I'm being honest. I will say that for prostate and other cancers, the black people had more incidence and mortality rate, and followed by Alaskan Native. Those were the two biggest trends.
Is there any reason, have you been able to find why Alaskan men have more and Black men have more prostate cancer?
So I'm stepping a little bit out of my specialty, but I will say that we do know that, again, access to medical care in any way has a big impact in the way that we diagnose, the early diagnosis especially. And there's a lot of research going on right now on the genetics behind those groups that have higher incidence, to see if there's anything particularly of those heritage that makes the cancer, especially for prostate cancer, more aggressive. So definitely the recommendations for, and this is something that has changed also over the years, especially like the last 10 years, I will say. We used to have like a common recommendation for everyone, right? Like, you have to screen breast cancer to all women at X age.
Correct.
Now we've seen that, populations are differences. We are diverse. So, and we're acknowledging that. And I think that science is moving to that more, okay, what's the person that is in front of me? What is its heritage? What is his history? What is important that I need to know to make the right recommendation for this person, instead of a cookie cutter kind of approach? And that, I think that is very important whenever you're in front of a patient, like, who do I have in front of me? What's their story? And I think that we're moving a lot towards that, including the screenings. And it's not the same if your heritage is important, where you were born, where you were raised, all of that we have to take into consideration when we're thinking about cancer screenings.
It took many, many years to create awareness. First, for example, for breast cancer. And now we all know, like, October is breast cancer month, and it really worked, the whole publicity. It also took years and years and years to create awareness about lung cancer and smoking.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
What can you do? Is it going to take a million years? Like, what can you do to create awareness on the new cancers that are now more relevant?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because, I'm more in the prevention side of things. My specialty right now, it's nutrition and exercise, and during all the care cancer continuum. So it's from prevention to end of life care, whatever that means to each person, right? And smoking was clear when that policies changed how that trend, and like how people started quit smoking, and how that trend of like people quitting smoking kind of changed cancer incidence, not only from lung, that's the first one that we associate, but also prostate. So prostate cancer's incidence has declined. Now it increased a little bit, but from the initial incidence rates to now, and it's, I want to say, mostly because of that tobacco cessation. So it is really interesting how we couldn't make any impact until, we changed policies and people started realizing that they needed to stop smoking. And now of course, there's still smokers out there, but no one really arguments against the idea, like,
It wasn't even the policies. It was also that before you could smoke in airplanes, you could smoke inside restaurants. And now things have evolved that you're throwing outside if you're a smoker
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of the secondhand.
Yeah. And interesting enough, I recently saw kind of like how the advertising regarding smoking kind of changed. And you have this for us, it's very strange to see now, but you had doctors saying like, oh, I only smoke, and they say a brand of tobacco industry. So it's really interesting how we're so much influenced by, culture and social media, and how that really changed throughout the years. And we're really hoping, and again, like the American Cancer Society, the American Institute of Cancer Research, all of these huge institutes are really pushing for a healthier lifestyle, right? So eat healthier and being active. And we can talk about that anytime. But my point being that we already know that this really impacts health and really impacts cancer development, right? Like we increase our risk if we do not do these things. But still, we have like mixed messages, right? Like we still have this. So I do think that there's a lot push to make that to again, like we really want the cancer incidence to decrease, not keep rising, right? Like that's the goal. So we know so many things right now that could help that. And the push has to be from all of us, right? To get that, to be sure that we have healthier lives. And right now, the risk of developing cancer in men in like during their life is 41%, and in women is 39%.
Oh,
So
that's really high.
yes, so from birth to death, your probability is really high. Almost half of us will develop cancer at some point, advanced cancer at some point of our lives. So this is for United States of America, right? This is only for us. So it is really impactful, and I don't think we talk about it enough. Also because I think, the word itself, it's such taboo, right?
Well, I remember when it said that somebody, oh, they have the big C.
Yeah.
And nobody wanted to talk about it. And now, not fortunately, but people are talking about it. They're more open. But
Yeah.
before we get into the conversation of the healthy living, that I would love for you to make a pitch on what everything that you have learned. Before we go to that, has, for example, the electronics, cell phones, increase the cancer levels, like the
So
waves?
yeah, that's a great question. So we know that sedentary life has increased, and screen time, so either in front of your computer, laptop, uh, cell phone, tablet, whatever you're using as a screen, TV, that is like definitely related to increasing your sedentary time. So time that you're just sitting down or lying down. And that has a direct link with cancer development. So we do know that, our lifestyle right now that is very related to screen time really impacts our chances.
So
Yes.
it's more of a sedentary lifestyle versus that if we talk on the phone and we get all the
Yeah.
electronic, whatever people say, don't talk on the phone because you're going to get brain cancer. It's more about not being in movement or being more, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Although we all heard about, the signals or something coming in, there's no direct link discovered, and I don't want to,
Yeah, no, correct. Not misleading.
but that is related. We do know that we are sitting and lying down more time, so, and that has been linked.
But for example, there was a huge promotion and a huge outcome with the tables the desk tables and working more standing up, or the bicycles that you put under your desk that helps you move. And I thought more people would be doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally in my office, and I do have one of those that come from like sitting to standing up, and I do change it up. Um, movements is something that in people's mind, physical activity is someone sweating in the gym and like, have to go through that awful like situation, and many people feel that is the huge barrier to even start movement. And when we think about movement from another point of view, it's just our bodies were made to move, right? Like we naturally move, and just from going from sitting to standing, or just you know um, going up and down the stairs once in your house, if you have a house, or just moving from your desk to your kitchen, that is active time that you make yourself move. And that alone, it doesn't seem like it has a great impact, but it does. Like we know that like if you break down your sitting time, we can have an impact on your health. So I think that messaging has to get out more. It's not only about exercising, that 150-minute recommendation we see everywhere, but to break down your sitting time or your laying down time. It's so important. That's why I think the desks, or if you have a bicycle, or if you have a treadmill at house, or even if you take bath breaks in your office, and instead of going to the nearest restroom, you go to the following one, that really has an impact. And I think that we work a little bit, our scientists and people who have to inform about this work a little bit against us, because we are sometimes come across really strict. And I think that behavioral change is all about trying that in the middle moment with people, right? Like, okay, my life is very complicated. Okay, let's work with your life, not against
But
it.
everybody's life is complicated. Like,
Exactly.
like everybody's life is complicated, and we don't we cannot take that route because, like, for example, a lot of people to ask us, how did you live, how were you able to live your life without a cell phone or without a computer? So it was complicated then, and it's getting more complicated. So this is not an excuse.
Mhm.
So if I understand correctly, it is not about going to the gym and literally sweating it off, but it's more about more movement during the day.
So I would say it's both in a way, right? Like
Okay.
we know that the recommendation, like the recommendation that most societies do, and it's based on a very abundant evidence, scientific evidence, is that 150 minutes of aerobic exercise, of moderate
150 minutes?
minutes during the week. So a whole week. So it's
Oh,
around,
during the week. I thought
yeah.
during the day. And I
No,
was like, I was
that would be a
freaking
lot.
out.
No, it's throughout the week, and it could be, broken down in many ways. It's 20 minutes every
So
day.
150 minutes, that's like an hour and a half, two
Mhm.
hours and a half, break down in a week. That's actually not even bad at all.
It's 20, like if you do it,
20
it's
minutes a day.
20 minutes a day.
Okay.
Give or take. And when we say moderate, that's the language of science, right? Moderate intensity aerobic exercise. It's a mouthful, first of all, but also it's basically you going on a walk with your dog with a pacing that it's a little bit out of your comfort zone. Instead of like looking at everything, you just like
You
keep it.
just go a little faster.
Or is, okay, I'm gonna do 2 Zumba classes of 1 hour, and then like walk around like the minutes that I'm like left. So it is whatever looks for you that can work for your life. And I
Okay.
think that message is so important. When we say 150 minutes, first of all, everyone gets that reaction. It's like, what, a
A day?
day? What does that mean in my week? So I think that messaging has to get better, and I think we're working towards that way, right?
Well, for example, I have a friend that she parks her offices in an office building, and when she has to park, she instead of taking the elevator, she literally walks around the garage until the first floor
Yeah, that's perfect. That's a perfect
and
way.
walks back and forth. And she said, I don't have time to do exercise, so at least I go to my car instead of the elevator. So that's something that you can do. or taking the stairs instead of taking the elevator.
100%. Or you know how we come back from the grocery stores and we just like want to have one trip from the car to our kitchen, and we just like put everything, just take two trips to.
Okay, those are small things that we can actually change.
Yes. I always say, like, you're brushing your teeth and you can do, you know, when you we call calf raise, then you're standing and you have like you standing your toes and you go up and down, up and down. That if you do 10 repetitions is how long you take to brush your teeth. So it's
So
introducing small
it's
things.
very small things that everybody can do.
Yes, and in what works for you. We're not saying, I have an this like watch that every half an hour it tells me like, hey, like you've been sitting for half an hour, just move around. And I just stand up, do a little stretch, and sit down again. And that break that doesn't seem like much, it actually changes a lot of the metabolism inside us. So
But it
it is
also changes
important.
the energy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it changes how, you know, our blood is flowing. So it changes a little bit of, it's a small stress. We always say, like, we always think stress is a negative thing, but it's actually part of our life and part of why our bodies changes, in sometimes in a good way and sometimes it impacts negative, right? And we use stress in science usually related to, you know, stress management and like how we are stressed in life. But the body needs a little bit of stress to adapt to little things. So when I say I stand up and go back to sitting, it actually stressed just a little bit my body, and my heart has to pump a little bit more and give me, you know, blood throughout all my body and not only my upper body, which was what I was doing by sitting down. So I do those little things that really change inside what's going on. And we always think that small is not good, and that's the message that we've been fed, and that's not true. Every little step counts.
Well, my father used to say that we do need a little stress in our lives. Because if we're in a comfort zone, then we don't push ourselves.
Yep.
So a little stress can really get us a long way.
Yeah. I think
So
that, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
no, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. Continue.
No, I was just gonna say, you know, we currently we think about stress as like chronic stress, about work stress, life stress, right?
Yeah.
We relate it to like very urgent and kind of tough situations. And stress originally, the word itself, it was just that little like that level of uncomfort that makes us change a few things inside of us. So yeah.
So your next pitch, healthy eating.
So
And I
healthy.
think that everybody listening to this and that knows me, they're gonna go, okay, you listen.
So I think, again, healthy eating is one of those things that also there's so much confusing messages across, right? Like, oh, you should follow this diet, and you know, there's so many diets that promise so much and sometimes deliver so little. So I think, in my point of view, when we think about healthy eating, we need to kind of pause and say, okay, think about what works for you. So what we know is like, and what would the most scientifics will agree on is what we call a plant-based diet, which has, again, like this marketing behind it that really
But the plant-based, it can go either way. Like what I'm hearing is it's not about a diet, but changing your eating habits. It's not like
exactly.
putting yourself on a diet. It's like changing some of the things.
Yeah. And we always say, you know, like, eat more plants by increasing your fruits, your vegetables, your whole grains, your legumes. So if you think about like ancestral and you know, our original kind of smaller societies, right? We think, let's go back to even like many different heritage, right? You think about Cubans and you think rice and beans, right? Like that was the base of, and you have, now it has changed a lot and we have a lot of meat incorporated into that. But the base of that was rice and beans. You
Rice
go
and
to
beans.
Asian people, rice and beans, rice and soy in their case. You go to the famous Mediterranean diet, and most of their diet is actually whole grains and
Olive
some kind of
oil.
legumes, lentils, chickpeas, like other beans. And they do have a little bit of fish, a little bit of what we call healthy fats, or like the olive oil,
The avocado.
the avocado. But it's not the base, because not everyone could afford to eat meats every day. So
But that's what we were finding out, that, for example, being healthy is more expensive
well,
in certain ways, because, and the best example was last week when we had to bring some of the food to our program with the girls, and we were looking at what things to bring them, and we actually made a comparison that the healthy snacks were much more expensive than junk food.
well, I'm gonna challenge that actually.
Okay. I love challenges.
No, in a way, I agree that we have surrounded ourselves with really cheap, fast, and unhealthy food. And I'm gonna put the focus on cheap for sure. Like you go to any of the fast foods,
But
and
it's not about the cheap. It's about the people that are struggling to feed their whole family. So if you have a very limited budget and you're a single mom with 3 kids, you're going to buy them a pizza that will feed the whole family versus the salad that's more healthy, that is not going to be more, it's not going to feed them and leave them satisfied.
so I agree that there's clear there's more access to unhealthy food, and it's
Correct.
more
It's
affordable
more
and
cheaper, so we need to work on that.
on the other side, so I'm gonna go with beans because I'm a huge advocate of beans and incorporate them into your life. They're a great source of protein. They're a great source of fiber. They're a great source of antioxidants and phytochemicals. All that really work for us against cancer and against cardiovascular disease,
So
right?
beans,
like any kind of bean, like whatever you like, garbanzo beans, lentils, black beans, kidney beans,
okay?
any kind of bean. And they're so cheap. They're one of the cheapest foods that you can get out there, even in cans or in like dried ones. And they can feed like
So can I interrupt you 1 second? You're just
100%.
mentioning in cans, and there's a lot of people that will go against the cans because it's not healthy. And you're telling me now that cans.
So again, it all depends on, that's why I focus so much on education, right? Like how
Yeah.
mixed messages really can kind of confuse us all, and like the customer, like the people don't know what to do, right? So what happened with cans is we have a variety of cans, right? But let's go with the beans ones. What might happen is because they want to preserve them they put a little bit of water and salt in them. But what happens? You open the can. That's only what they have. You check in the ingredients. You say, I don't know, let's say kidney beans, salt, water, right? That usually
That's
they
totally
might have.
fine.
That is totally fine. And if you have a problem with salt, if you're hypertensive or you have cardiovascular disease, or you're just mindful about your salt, which is fine, you go put it in water, wash it a little bit, and
That's
that
what I was just going to ask you. Can you wash it, and will that help?
yeah, and I think that the same happens with fruits in cans. It was so advertised, like, oh, they're awful. you know what, you look at the ingredients, if they don't have added sugars, if they don't say pineapple and they say sugar or they say honey or whatever, like it's fine. It's just the way that we work against us. We're always all the time saying like, oh, it has to be fresh. Well, actually it doesn't. Like, we have ways to check that the food that you're taking in cans or frozen are good. Even frozen food, like they are fruit that is like ripe and it's in the perfect state. They freeze it, and if they don't have anything added, no additives, no process, they're perfectly fine to
Okay.
consume, and they conserved all the nutrients that you need. So we work again, and I'm saying from the science point of view, we work against us. We are so structured in the way that we educate, and we have this message that it ends up confusing. And yes, a salad might be more expensive than a pizza, but rice and beans probably won't, and it will be
And it
more
will bring the proteins and that you need. Meat and chicken.
Yes. So I'm glad that you asked this. So red meats, red processed meats, we're talking bacon, we're talking lunch meats, hot dogs, all of that is actually by the WHO, the World Health Organization, has been determined as a carcinogen type 1. So it's actually in the same category as asbestos and tobacco. So it has been proven that increases the risk of developing colorectal cancer. So
The
we
hot
already knew this. All the processed meats, so hot dogs, bacon, lunch meats, the bolognas, all of the processed meats that you buy in most Americans have in their fridge every day. And red meats, it's actually type 2, so it is linked to increased in development of a few cancers.
So red meat, meaning a steak.
Beef, pork, and lamb. So when it comes to cancer prevention, we really focus on lean meats, so fish, shellfish, and poultry.
So
Turkey.
poultry is much better than the red meat.
Yes, and I came across a few years ago with this reference that I loved. That is like you see like a 0, 2, 4, and like a question mark, right? So if it had 0 or 2 legs, so it's a leg count. So it has no legs.
It's a leg count.
2 legs, which would be poultry with turkey, turkey, chicken, whatever. It has like a green light, and then you go into your 4 legs, which is pork, lamb, and beef.
Okay.
It goes into the red light, and then you have the question mark, which is the hot dogs, all the processed meats. Like, do you know where they came from? Like, can you explain how they were put together? No.
And
you don't know how many legs they have, don't buy it. And I think that's a very like, if you don't know how many legs they have, don't buy it.
Don't buy it. Okay. What about fish?
So fish also, like, mercury, like there's so much going on about fish. I feel like, my recommendation would be try to have fish that is like caught near your, especially in South Florida, like we have
all around.
All around. Ideally, wild caught is always better than farm raised, and just because the conditions of how those animals were raised, it is more expensive. So if you're eating, I always say, if you're eating once a week, well, you have to balance that
You
out.
have to balance, but if you eat all the proteins in the beans one day, and then the fish another day, and then chicken another day, then you start going back.
Yeah, and tofu, it's like a great source, again, like another bean, soy. And it has been demonized, like it's horrible. And I have been one of those person that didn't like tofu for a very long time. So I can totally understand people who are like, tofu, no. And it really comes up.
The tofu pasta.
Oh, I never had that.
Really good.
Okay. I think that going back to the kitchen is also a good, and I'm not talking about complicated recipes. I'm just having those little things that are already done for you, and just like grab things and mix it up in a bowl, kind of, I think that we need to kind of
Go back
revisit
to
that.
recipes.
You know? We always say like we don't have time, and it's true. We are living very busy lives, and you know, if you have kids, it gets even busier. But what in our family, what we have like kind of this routine in which like someone puts a you know, there's always like some kind of grain like cooked already. So we have like rice or quinoa or whatever we eat, like or we have, you know, a
Well,
crust, like,
quinoa is a really good source of protein.
yeah, it's a great source of
It
protein.
was
It's a great
called
source of
the
fiber.
food of the gods for the Peruvian people.
Yes, exactly. And there's so many varieties, right? We only know the white one, but the red one is really good. It's a little
Yeah.
bit bitter. And we used to have to work a lot to like clean the quinoa because it has saponine, which, but now they came like they come pre-washed, so it's like even easier, and it's cooked in like, I'm gonna say 5 minutes tops, because it's such a small grain.
Yes.
And it used to be quite expensive, and now has gotten a little bit.
Now it got really, it used to be like a delicacy, and now it became accessible for everyone.
And also, as you know, I've been in a, I don't drink much of a cow milk. I usually buy like, you know, vegetable milks. 5 years ago, you could not find one in a, you know, in a supermarket. Now you have, what's the offer? Like you go to that
Yeah.
aisle, it's like hundreds of
We are
different.
blessed that we have a lot of choices.
Yeah, so we have the power to change what they offer us, right? So that is a clear example of like how consumption change offer. So how consumers change the way that they offer things in the supermarket. And I think that we forget that we do have power, and they want us kind of in a way to forget that we have power. And I want to say, especially women, I'm going to talk a lot in women, right? Like, who does the groceries? Most households, I want to say, and I would say it's women, right? It might be not be for everyone, and that's totally fine. But if you're a woman and you're listening, and you are the one that making those decisions, it's so important, and we forget the
And you
power.
have the power to bring the food that you want them to eat. Well, I don't buy food that I don't like. So they
Exactly.
used to make fun of me that I buy what I like and what about the rest?
Yeah. And you know, make ourselves. I will like, for example, I am buying usually broccoli frozen, because for me, in my mind, like, I don't know why, like the fresh broccoli doesn't work in my house. Like we don't usually like cook
Well,
it.
you have to do it immediately because if not, it doesn't, it gets a little sour.
And I used to suffer it. I'm like, oh, I should buy it fresh. And now I'm like, no, this is how I eat a cruciferous vegetable that is great for our family. Like,
Okay.
why, you know, like,
Why do you need to prive yourself? And then, yes. So with that, I'm going to recommend everybody a book that I just finished. And it talks about a lot of food, but it also talks about women in the 50s. And
oh,
it's really now I heard that it became a TV show, but it's called Lessons in Chemistry.
oh yes, it's in. I don't want to. I don't know if we can say platforms, but I started it. It
And
is.
it's really amazing, and it talks about everything, and it's a very enjoyable book. So with that, I really want to thank you, Paola. Really, this was an amazing conversation. We didn't even get to the Diet Coke, which that's
We'll leave that for
my,
another one.
yes, but that's for a second conversation. So thank you so much. And to everyone, above all, stay safe. And hopefully next week there will be peace in the world. Have an
Thank you.
amazing day.